Okay. My cold never go away. I'm keeping cold for 2 months. I think it's getting worse, I guess. Okay. Today is 8th lecture. The architect I'm going to talk about is the Patrick Schimmer, who is a partner now. I think who is a principal of Zaha Hadid Architect. You know, as you know, Zaha, she passed away this year. I mean, he's not very well known. I mean, he's famous, but he's not, because he works for Zaha, so you know, I think he's different architect from other guys, you know, in my lectures. He's not the principal, and he didn't founded that company, you know, Zaha Hadid Architects. Zaha, I'm not sure when she started her own practice, but I think it's early 80s, I guess. Actually, the Lamcourt House, OM, she used to be a founding member of OMA, and then she left to open her own office, but she didn't actually get the real commission for almost 10 years. Her first her first realized work is built in early 90s, 1994, 1993, 1994. So she managed her office for 10 years without any real commissions. So I'm curious, you know, how she could do that. The answer is she's rich, so she can do that actually without the commission. Patrick, he joined the Zaha Hadid Architects in 1988. So he's kind of a very early member of the office. You know, the Mario Carpo, I'm going to start with the quote of from the architecture historian who is Mario Carpo. I think who is a professor. He is a professor in University of London or something. I didn't remember that. But he emphasized the technological innovation is very important in architecture field. So he said architects has been at the forefront of technological innovation and expressed the logic and opportunities of digital tools better than most other professions. You know, the reason I started with this, the phrase is, I mean, this is very basic thing. I mean, in architecture, technology is it has been always important, but this country, I don't know, I mean, it's because of probably somehow, it's because of kind of Confucius culture, I don't know, Chinese culture, Asian culture, somehow architects, they don't care about the technology. I realized this very conventional environment in this country. So, you know, let me explain why I has been interested in Patrick rather than Zaha. So this is kind of a list of Zaha's work. It's kind of important work. This is her, you know, the student's work. I think it's graduation thesis from the Architectural Association in London. The peak is the competition-winning project. By this project, she started to get the fame, international fame, because that was, I'm not sure, I mean, at that time I was 5 years old, so I don't know, but that was a really big, one of the big competition at that time. And also her drawing was beautiful, so he got fame, but she didn't get the real commission. she started to get the commission late 80s. I think it's IBA housing and Vitra, the fire station, is one of the early projects. And but she started, even though she started design in 1986, but it's built early 90s. So actually, from the peak to first built project, it's more than 10 years. And then that is also, I think, as far as I know, I mean, that is probably the first work in America by Zaha. And that is, she's already famous, but that project drives her to get the Pritzker Prize, the Maxi in Rome. And I mean, nobody knows this project, but to me, this is very important. And also, Dongdaemun DDP and King Abdullah, the research center, and other many projects. I mean, when I was a college student, Zaha was famous too. I mean, that time. She was already very famous. And then I forgot about her. And then when I did a master, suddenly I got interested in the Zaha's project again. And then I found some change between 10 years. I mean, it's dramatically changed. So I was curious why her kind of design, the style has been changed. And then I do some simple research. So that was the project in Saudi Arabia, King Abdullah Petroleum Research Center. It looks like very strange to me. It doesn't look like Zaha's work. It's very different. I mean, it's easily you can get that kind of the form, the shape is generated by the script or parametric tools. But she, before I mean, if you look at the earlier projects, she didn't use any this kind of thing. To me, it looks like more, how to say. Do you know Ali Rahim? Ali Rahim is the first architect who used kind of parametric tools in architectural design. So to me, it doesn't look like Zaha's. So I was curious why she did that. And then I found, this guy became the partner at that time. Actually, the reason I knew that this project is the one of the instructor at MIT. He showed me, and then I used a similar methodology in my own project, kind of to generate the landscape, kind of the landform by using the way of parametric. Yeah, but I mean, the design process of this kind of thing and this kind of thing is very different from the traditional project. I mean, the old project, not only earlier project of Zaha. Yes, so he's the very important person who changed Zaha's design methodology. So I think this time, probably, yeah. So she changed. I mean, she was getting old. Probably Patrick, he started to do more, she get the more in charge of the design, I guess. This is my assumption. So, I mean, this is the kind of title of today's lecture. Also, Patrick, he said, parametric is not a special thing. I mean, he insists parametric design is kind of style. And also, we already use this kind of thing every day. So he said, we pursue the parametric design paradigm all the way, penetrating into all corners of discipline. Parametric figuration concerns all design tasks, from urban design, urbanism to level of tectonic detail, interior furnishing, and the world of products. But even before the architecture field, parametric design is already used in the industrial design and industrial product, this kind of thing. And for example, here car design too, I mean, this is the Mercedes-Benz in 60s. Yeah, it's kind of a modernism style. And 80s, it became more boxy. Yeah, I mean, you know, the function of car is always same. It's almost same, right? These days it's dramatically changed, but from 40s to early 21st centuries, the function of a car is almost same. It's kind of a mechanical, it's machine for drive. But these days, I mean, it's changed. I mean, car is now, it's like machine, not machine, computer for drive. The style has been changed, you know, the fast. And this is 80s, and this is the early 20th centuries. It gets more curve. This is 2007. It gets even more curve. And now I think the overall form of a car is same, but my observation is, I mean, this year I saw the grill. I mean, it's kind of interesting. When they start to use a parametric design, the grill, this is kind of modern style, right? So this is parametry. And even air purifier, I mean, I have this one in my house, at home. I also found parametric design. So yeah, parametric design is everyday. Everyday is, it infiltrate into everyday life. So, you know, the reason I started by kind of a conventional environment of Korean architecture is, you know, when I came to the school 3 years ago, I found the architects and the professors and teachers, they kind of underestimate the digital design a lot, especially parametric design and generative. I'm not a person who focus on doing the parametric design in my own architectural design, but parametric design is not like a special thing. It's just like you have to do that, right? Do you understand? It already, you know, conquered everything, every, you know, design field. So you have to understand that, you have to do that, you have to apply that to your design. But in this country, in my country, I don't know, I mean, architects actually doesn't care about that. So yeah, that's why I started that. So again, parametric design is not a special. He also talking about the same thing. Parametric figuration concerns all design tasks. It's not only about the urban design, also architecture, and not only architecture and the small scale thing, you know, even products everywhere. He wrote this article in 2008. So, you know, if I go back to the Zaha's work, Zaha's list. So I said from 2005, Zaha's kind of design, the style has been dramatically changed. I think it's because of kind of the digital design. I don't want to talk about the digital computation design today because I'm not good at it. I don't have enough knowledge about that. But it started in 80s in American schools, and in the 90s some architects started to use it. 2000 and schools they educate the parametric tools in AA and also Columbia University. Not only Columbia University, many universities in America now I think it's dominate all the educational institute, not only in America, in Europe, everywhere actually, not except for Korea, even in China. So, yeah, the fundamental desire that has come to the fore in this tendency means a parametric design tendency, had already been formulated at the beginning of the 1990s. So in 1990s, many computational scholars, not architects, scholars, they start make theory, computational theory, to use that in architectural design too. So the key slogan was continuous differentiation. So, I mean, I found a great article in ArchDaily. So what's the difference between these two? The same, right? The function is the same. Can you see that? Is it too small? What's the difference of these two? It's same, right? If you like this style, I mean, you can do this. This is much more, I mean, this is simpler, right, to construct it. I think in terms of budget, I mean, you can save more money to do that. But these days, people like it. For example, you know, Bjarke Ingels, he always twisted everything, every buildings. So because of the style, I mean, they, you know, the people and the clients, they're ready to spend more money to have a different style, different looking of buildings. So style is, I mean, sometimes architects, they deny to accept importance of style, but style is very important in architecture. It's always, style is very important. So that is very modern. This is the result of product of modernism, and this is a product of kind of parametricism or parametric design. What's the difference between these two? It's same, right? It's a divide two. I mean, it has the same area. It has the same area, but just the looking is different. That's the thing. So you know, Patrick Schumacher, he claimed is the parametricism is kind of a new style of architecture. So we have to accept that. That's the claim about the parametricism. It's same, right? This is the Miss building, Seagram building in 60s. It's 61, right? 61 or 51? I don't remember. 61, I guess. That is the designed by Bjarke Ingels group in Vancouver. The basic function of these two buildings is same, you know, core in the center, core in the middle, and then, you know, the stacking the same floor plan. But it's stacked floor plan the straight way, but it's just, it makes some, you know, differentiation. It twisted a little bit. But if you ask these two buildings to students, what is better? I mean, I think these days many students, you know, answer that is more stylish, that is better. But I mean, it's the same, basically same building. So we cannot judge what is better. It's just difference of styles. So this is the table from one of his articles. It's also very small too. I think it's a historical change of style of you know, ism in architecture. The Renaissance, Baroque, Classicism, Historicism, you know, Modernism, and Postmodernism, Deconstructivism, and Parametricism. He says Parametricism is in terms of order and in terms of freedom. This is on the top. I don't know. I don't actually understand this one. I'm not agree with that, but this is, I mean, sometimes technology that influence that result in the change of you know, the style, but not always. For example, the Baroque and Classicism is I mean, in terms of technology, in terms of structure, it's same, but the style is different. These two is totally different because it's I mean, because of the, you know, by the technological structural innovation and also new materiality. The modernism is very different from this one and that too. But basically, the modernism and we are still in the era of modernism. The modernism and the parametricism is basically, I think, the same, but it's a difference of style. But we have a more in virtue of the advanced technology and the innovation and the computational technology, we can do that. And this is the Chinese order. Do you know this Chinese architect, Yang Sasong? Liang, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Liang Shocheng. He is the early 20th century's Chinese architect. He was born in the late Qing dynasty. I think he was born in, I guess, 1860 or 1870, I guess. And then he studied in University of Pennsylvania. So he educated by Western culture. So he tried to categorize, he tried to organize the historical architecture in China. So he made this diagram. This is amazing. He is probably the first Asian architect who is trying to kind of organize, reorganize, and also categorize the old Asian architecture. Basically, in terms of structure, it's all the same. It's this is 760, so it's 8th century, from 8th century to 18th century, so almost like for 10,000s. For 10,000s, basically the structural system is the same, right? Is wood and wooden columns, and on the top, the bracketing system and the roof system. But style has been changed, and a little bit structural system has a little bit changed, but basically, idea is the same. This is the bracketing system in Japanese, the Buddhist temple in Japan. That is the oldest, the remaining wooden structure in Asia. I think that is I went there, I think it's almost like 10th century, and the 12th century, 14th centuries, and so on. So what I want to say is the style is, I want to talk about the importance of the style. The style it has been very important in architectural field. So he said that the reason why we start to be interested in the kind of a parametric design is, so in modern this is a post-Fordist society. Means the Fordist is Henry Ford. You know Henry Ford, right? Car maker. So the Fordist means it's like the making the product by and making. It's about the mass production. It's making. How to say? There is no differentiation. It's the same modules, same elements to make the product, and the system is very important. It's always the same, but it allow to generate the more product than the kind of the customize the product. But this era is. We became we are under the environment of a complexity, and we are in the polycentric urban and architecture field. we have more diversity. In the early 20th centuries, I think the mass production, so making more is more important. But at this time is making more is not that important. So making differentiation is the more important. That's why we start to have have interest in the parametric design. That's the Patrick's to insist. So I mean today and next Friday I'm gonna talk about the parametricism. Not only Zaha's work, but mostly parametric design, parametricism of Patrick Schumacher. The 5 articles. So 2000 is actually before the era of parametricism, and then he started to create the manifesto of parametric design in 2008. It's less than 10 years. And the 2016 is a very recent article written by him. So today, I'm going to focus on looking at Zaha's work. So I categorized by 3 for the Zaha's work. This is the very early work, but it shows the early tendency of Zaha's kind of a design, the methodology and philosophy. I mean, that she has been a little bit changed. I think it's because of the change of architecture style. She started to make kind of a bending and curve. She started to use the curves in building because at that time, the kind of continuous surface, the idea of a continuous surface is dominated the architectural field, and so she adopted herself for that kind of a new environment. And this one is she started to use kind of a two-way curvature in architecture. DDP is very important for Zaha because before getting the commission of DDP, she and Patrick and Zaha, the architects, they designed some buildings which has a two-way curvature and kind of a manipulated geometry. But actually, they have no idea about how to construct that. I mean, they had no experience for the real building. But DDP was the first opportunity. They realized, very complex geometry. So that's why they hired Gary Technology, because they have any idea about the real the building construction. So actually, the Gary Technology, the engineer in Gary Technology, they resolved all the problem of a two-way curvature. So actually, in computation, Frank Gehry probably he's the most important person. So actually, he changed everything. He changed every architecture. So I mean, what I want to say is many architects in the world, even in America, they don't like Frank Gehry. I mean, even in American architects, they say, Frank Gehry is just a filmmaker. He has no idea about the internal space. But actually, he changed everything. He influenced, the Peter Eisenman. Peter Eisenman hates Frank Gehry, but actually, he was influenced by Frank Gehry. And Zaha is also indirectly influenced by Frank Gehry. And who else? Almost every architect in this time. Almost every famous architect. I think Tohyo Ito is probably influenced by Frank Gehry. And Sana, yeah. So probably not for the design, but for the construction, way of construction by using the digital technology. Frank Gehry is very important. But he didn't wrote any. He wrote something, but he's not a theorist. So maybe next year, maybe I can talk about Frank Gehry, but not this time. So let me first look at the Zaha's first work. The Patrick he wrote an article about in 2000. He wrote about the Zaha's work, especially early work. So I mean, that is very helpful to understand the kind of design methodology of Zaha's early projects. The first sentence is the significance and ambition of this project. This project means early project of Zaha is that they might be seen as manifestos of a new type of space. So new type of space means, I mean, it's very ambiguous, but it's not about the form. I mean, she actually didn't care about the form. I mean, she tried to provide a new experience to people. That's the most important thing to Zaha. So, and the early project that operates as an inspiring manifesto about the new compositional possibilities. So composition was very important in first project, in early projects. I mean, these days, the Zaha's work is not about the composition. I mean, it's making the, kind of interesting form. But the early work is a composition. I mean, actually, that guy, I forgot your name. Kwang-sun, actually, the last Tuesday talked about that. She highly influenced by the constructivism art and architects for her first. So this is very famous. I mean, everyone knows this building, Litvert Schroeder House. This is Schroeder House. This is modernism house, but it's different from the modern style. I mean, it's very influenced by the constructivism art too, and that is a different way. I mean, she used the different angles, but actually idea was almost, I mean, kind of the same. So these two buildings in the, I mean, if you make the category in the modern architecture, I mean, this is not my idea. I mean, Patrick said these two buildings can be the same, category. Yeah, so neo-constructivism and the Malevich, I mean, she also talked about that. The Malevich's drawing is very important. She influenced by Malevich's and the neo-constructivism as the Peter Eisenman takes off from the Le Corbusier. So this is the Malevich's drawing. It's very famous suprematist composition by Kazimir Malevich in early 20th centuries, and this is her the drawing in Architectural Association in 1977. This is student work of her. I mean, when she was in the college AA school, that's her studio project. I mean, I can find the kind of similarity between her drawing and the drawings in Julius, New York. I mean, I think the 70s and early 80s, this kind of drawing style was very popular. So this is not very characteristic. I mean, it's very, at that time, if you consider that time, that is very common style of the drawing. And this is her thesis project. This is the Museum of the 19th Century. But interesting thing is, she did her thesis by Museum of the 19th Century, but she got win the international competition for the Museum of the 21st centuries. So that was a very interesting coincidence. But I cannot see any characteristic of herself. I mean, I can see who is that guy, Lamcroft's work or Peter Eisenman's work here. Drawing is not also, it's very, so it has the same style as the 70s drawing. I mean, it's the Lamcroft's thesis project. So this is Zaha's thesis project. So I think at that time, school has this kind of thing, I guess, AA school. So that was the dominating schemes. So I think that's why the peak was very important to understand Zaha. I mean, her style is kind of drawing is similar, or the way of the kind of start to use the kind of distortion or perspective. That shows actually is the kind of she start to establish her own characteristic in architectural design. This is the peak, the international winning project. She got the fame because of the great drawings. I don't understand the architecture. The building. Building itself is not that interesting, but the drawing is great. So that's why she won the project. That shows many things. That says many things. In this time, in this era, we have a similar thing. The rendering is very important, right? Sometimes the design itself is not good. Plan is not very functional. But the winning entry has a great renderings, great the drawings. So that actually makes to win the competition. So this is to me. It's the same. The great drawing actually. So because of that, I guess she won the project. I guess this is my own opinion. I don't know. I don't understand this project. I don't have any interest about this project. So this is one of built-to-work IBA housing. It's designed in 1986 and built in 1983 or 4. Kind of a similarity of drawings and a kind of distorted geometry, and also very compositional. The masonry, different masses. So her idea is for the early project is she has a kind of neo-constructivism and also very compositional, but her own characteristic is distorting the interior space to generate kind of new experience to people. And then the mid 19th centuries, her design is changed, and also Patrick said. The British Pavilion. She did an exhibition for the Venice Biennale in 2000. But I couldn't find any photos about that. But the set of fold and twist and bundle, the sprinted it became very important. But this is not about the fold and it's not about bending and twisting. But as she started to have an interest about this kind of a design methodology and design style, so this is the very small pavilion. That's probably the first project she used the idea of the folding in architecture, the folding, and it's kind of bending and folding in the Louis and Richard Center for Contemporary Art in Cincinnati, in America. But that project is very important. That is between kind of folding the early era of Zaha and the kind of second era of Zaha. So it's very compositional, right? But interiors, inside it has the idea of folding. So it has two different ideas at the same times. Because she didn't use the kind of idea of folding actively, but just for the interior space. But after that, the folding, it became everything in her design. It's the Museum of 21st Century's Art. Internationally, she already famous. She was already famous, but finally she became kind of a very competitive person for the Pritzker Prize by this project. But this style, I didn't like this building because actually UN Studio already used this kind of thing. Eisenman, he already used this kind of thing. And Gary is even more crazy. He's crazier than that kind of thing. But anyway, she has been changed. But the kind of fluidity of space interior, you can see the similar thing in DDP. Yeah. But the thing is, the idea of, the way of design in the Dongdaemun Design Plaza is it is three-dimensional. This is three-dimensional, but basically two-dimensional. It's not a three-dimensionally manipulated. It's two-dimensionally curved and two-dimensionally curved, right? But in DDP, the three-dimensionally, is manipulated geometry. She started to use that. So he said, we propose to call this style and parametricism. Parametricism is the great new style after modernism. This is very dangerous thing. Postmodernism and this constructivism have been transitional episodes that ushered in this new long wave of research and innovation. So he said, modernism is here and parametricism here, and this is a two big thing. But postmodernism and deconstruction is a small thing. That's only just transitional thing for the parametricism. To him, not for every architect. Yeah. So the modernism and postmodernism and discussion. Order is order. Order in order. Meaning of order in architecture is important. Then also the freedom is also very important. Freedom is for the architecture. Architect's intuition. The order is, I think it's something different. It's like kind of in Asian culture, order. The meaning of order in Asia and the Western culture is different. But to me, the meaning of order in Western culture is I think is trying to use the kind of a law to, try to find the law of the universe, and finding that law of universe and space, you can make the kind of perfect architecture, and then that architecture can be a sort of art. So that's actually the Le Corbusier talk about the same thing. So he said, but he's a very dangerous guy. The parametricism is a top of order, is top of freedom. I don't know. He's a very radical person. And also his way of writing is he's like Ramcross. He made words by themselves. So he used a very strange word. That word, you cannot find that word in a dictionary. So he invented words for his idea. Yeah, I think he's a very strong guy. So he keeps saying the modernism was founded on the concept of space. Who is that guy? The Bentley. Robert Bentley said the same thing. The modernism architect, they're crazy about the space. But he said parametricism differentiate the fields. So it can consume, it can accept the kind of variety and differentiation of architectural field and urban design field and everything. So it can give architects more freedom than modernism. Modernism is very orthodontic. Is it right? Orthodontic. I forgot the name. Very strict. But by using the parametric design, you can get more freedom, and also you can make the more adaptable, the design for the world of variety, world of variation. So this project, nobody knows, I think. Maybe you guys knows. I saw this project accidentally 10 years ago. I was like, Zaha, she was crazy. He's totally, to me, it doesn't look like Zaha's work is too crazy. But you can see the kind of similarity of this project and the Maxi. And Maxi has two, one-way curvature, right? One-way curve, two-dimensionally curved. But that is the two-way curved, right? So, her idea is, the first idea is a composition of a surface by using the different angle it became that's the combined to generate the kind of curved surface. And then the curved space, it changed to the kind of three-dimensionally curved surface and became, it's not the surface, it's not about the surface, it became kind of it's mass, right? It makes a volume. So it's not about the manipulation of the surface, but it's for making the the volume. And then the DDP is even more crazy. So yeah, I mean, I don't think Zaha designed this one. I think Patrick and the staffs and students, interns, and they designed this one. But somehow I think Zaha, she lost her own character. Zaha architects, they didn't invent this kind of form making. I think the first guys in the late 20th centuries, some very experimental architects in Europe and America, they start to generate this kind of thing by using the Maya and they never realized that concepts. But in virtue of Frank Gehry, only famous architect, they can realize that because they can have reach the clients. I think it's this one. Everyone knows this one. This one is in Azerbaijan. I think it's almost like the same period with Dongdaemun Design Plaza. So this one and DDP is the first built project for Zaha Hadid architects about three-dimensionally the changing the form, the volume or surface. It's all parametric. I mean, do you understand the meaning of parametric? I mean, this form you can generate without any parametric thing, but to realize that you have to understand the idea of parametric because it's all panelized. To make the panel, I mean, you have to use the computation tools. You have to understand parametric things. I think the most of people says Gaudi is probably the first architect who has the idea of parametric design in architecture. But Gaudi's way of Gaudi for realizing the build is very analog, right? So he kind of by using hand, actually, not computer. But it's very expensive. It's hard to construct that. You need a lot of time to study that and realize that. I think Gaudi is a crazy guy. Gaudi is not a normal person. I think he's kind of he's from some different planet. So only he can do that. And then after 50 years, 60 years, many architects, they want to do that. They want to, imitate the similar thing, but they all failed with no money. It's just too difficult to do that. And then, by the Gehry or Gehry technology, architects, okay, this is the time we can duplicate the idea of Gaudi and Fry Oro or this kind of thing. So, I mean, only by intuition you cannot design. You have to understand the computation. You have to understand the tools. You have to understand the technique, and then you can do that. It's all parametric. I mean, the making the panels, panelizing, and also the product. This kind of diverse sized panels. You need to know that. And also, again, parametric everywhere, and it reminds me of this same as three-dimensionally manipulated form. So yeah, parametry is not special. It's not special. I mean, for you guys, you have to do that. And then you can do something different. Do you understand? I'm not, architect crazy about parametric design, but I think parametric design became the essential now. It's becoming essential. I think in your time, I think it's going to be the dominating things. Yeah, and also technology is I think it's enough innovated to realize this kind of thing. It becomes not expensive though. In China, it's super cheap, and the many Chinese architects, they actually do. Do you know MAD? M-A-D? Ma Yansong. Ma Yansong is internationally, he is the most well-known architect, well-known Chinese architect. I guess he's gonna get the Pritzker Prize in 10 years, I think, 15 years. He does the same thing. He does a similar thing because Chinese factory, they have techniques. They have because the many European company to have this kind of skills, they made factory in China to save some labor, and then they remained that factory. They actually left the China. I think at least 5 years. The Chinese, the Chinese, the makers, they bought not only factory, also all the techniques and the machines to generate things. So they have skills. So Chinese architects these days, they do that. They do maybe the most active the country to use a parametric design. But we are still stacking bricks in Korea. And Japan is they even more advanced. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the recent, the young architects in Japan, I mean, from the outside, it doesn't look, they didn't use parametric design, but actually if you see the detail, I mean, they have amazing innovations of technology in architecture. But in this country, we're still, stacking bricks. It's kind of shame. Yeah, again, this project. So let me show you the video about that. It's very short. Idea of biomimetic, idea of parametric. This building is under construction. I think it's almost done. Do you know this project? This is I think it's almost done. Saudi Arabia. You can see, I think you're gonna see this project next year or this year, I guess. Yeah. I think the design is a little bit changed, but it's almost same. Idea is almost same, and not that crazy, but or still crazy. It's very. I think it's inspiring building. That is also, I guess, that is also made by 3D tools, 3D digital fabrication. I think. Robotic arms and 3D printers. So, digital architecture, computation, and digital fabrication is very important. Interior space, I think 15 years ago, if you do this at the school, the teacher said it's impossible. It's not realistic. But these days, is it possible? Do you know that building, Louvre, Abu Dhabi, designed by Jean Nouvel? I mean, he had a similar kind of skins. Do you know that, right? Jean Nouvel's Louvre, Abu Dhabi. Oh man, let me show you. I'm not sure Louvre spelling. Is it right? Louvre. When I saw this rendering, I didn't think they can realize this. This is crazy. But it's possible. Yeah. They build it. It's almost done, I think. Yeah, it's all fabricated by computers. Possible. It's already possible if we have money. And yeah. And Zaha is also did the same thing. So I have three. So I mean the next class, I'm not going to show you the many projects of Zaha's. I'm going to talk about Patrick's idea about parametricism. So he insists styles are design research programs. That is very important to me because Zaha, she doesn't care about the research. I mean, she's very intuitive architect. But he said research is very important. You have to do the study to do something different. You guys have to do study. Because by understanding the technology, by understanding innovation, and you can do something different. Because I think 10 years ago, when I was a student, 15 years ago, it's not very, we didn't have a laser cutter. We didn't have a 3D printer. The way of design is almost same as, 60, I think 50s. The teachers, they talk about the space, kind of a modernism architect. Space is grand. And still some, some teachers had talk about the space. But these days, space is an essential thing. It's a fundamental thing. It's not a special. Space is the basic thing, and then you have to do something more, right? To do that, you have to study, and you have to understand the technology, because technology is getting more, innovative. You're gonna have so many tools, and you're gonna have so many digital techniques. You don't need to understand everything, but you have to understand the fundamental thing of the digital tools and digital techniques. And then, that is a very fundamental and essential thing for this time. I guess the 10 years, I think this country, our country, some architects, we start to use the parametric design or digital design, I guess. It's still expensive, but I guess after 10 years, it can be much better, much more affordable. So the last thing, so to understand parametric design, to understand kind of new ideology of architecture, there's two things. The negative, the meaning of a heuristic. The heuristic means the process to make some result. The kind of process meaning is almost same meaning of process is some different. Negative things. So let's say avoid familiar typology. Avoid familiar typology means this. This room is very familiar typology. All the school has this. So we have to avoid this one. And avoid Platonic objects. That means space is grand. That we have to avoid that. Avoid clear-cut zones and territories. Clear-cut means, this kind of thing, and very clear edge. Maybe I can, by this example, maybe that's to make you. So this is clear edge. This is not clear edge. I mean, it's very ambiguous, right? Especially that one. So this is new. This is old. But that is a 2007 model, yeah, only 10 years. And avoid straight lines. Everything is straight lines. Avoid corners, corners here, 90 degrees corners. And most importantly, do not add and subtract without elaborate interarticulation. Means it's almost same meaning of making kind of a blurred boundaries. Yeah, interarticulation is not. You cannot find these words in dictionaries. Articulation is the articulation. The meaning of articulation is making. making articulating. 굉장히 그 심사숙고해서 이렇게 만들어내는 과정 뭐 이런 건데. 그러니까 아무 생각 없이 막 더하고 붙이고 이런 거 하지 말라는 거죠. You can understand, right? No. Yeah, the positive heuristics, positive things, we have to do that. The thing we have to do that is interarticulate. Yeah, all different words. Morph, deterritorialize, deform, and so on and so on. Spline, you know spline, right? Spline is different from curve. Curve is it's a traditional way to make non-straight lines, but spline is different. Spline is very mathematically generated curved line, and also, I mean, the spline is very important thing for the computational design too. I mean, if you can use Rhino, I mean, you can easily understand the meaning of spline. And nurse, I think nurse generative components, script rather than model. This is, his idea. I mean, we don't have to follow everything. But he's very radical. He's at the forefront of digital design. So I think it's meaningful to understand person in the front of a new design style. I don't think I need to understand. But, he said the scripting is important. And GC is generative component. I don't know the DP, but it's also all about the computational techniques. You have to understand that.